ask you to come up onto the beam? Everyone can be seated. So, Brad, I just want to share some thoughts with you. It's an amazing thing. If you look at the Torah reading for today, it's the greatest miracle in all of Jewish history. The Red Sea parts were liberated from Egypt. It takes exactly 3 verses until the people start kvetching. That's the greatest miracle. Three verses. That much, and then the people start kvetching. And so the question is, like, how do you put up with that? All right. And what do you do? How do you survive this? And I know something about this because my father was a politician. He was the president of city council in my hometown, and so he had a bunch of experiences with this that he shared with me as I was growing up. It was really one of the formative aspects of my life. So I want to give you 3 pieces of wisdom from my father of blessed memory. The first is, if you're going to lead. My father loved Harry Truman. And Harry Truman on his desk had a little sign that said, "The buck stops here." All right. My father had a copy of that on his desk. All right. And nothing is more aggravating than when nobody knows what's going on. If you lead, you lead. And no doubt East Brunswick is going to be very blessed to have your leadership. That's no question about that. So I'm not really worried about that part. The second thing, my father and I were once downtown. There was like a diner that all the politicians used to eat at, and it was right near the courthouse and right near the main firehouse. So we come out, and all of a sudden fire engines start roaring down the street. The guy comes up to my father and goes, Mr. Walkoff, you have to do something about that." And my father said, "About what?" He said, "About the fire engines." My father said, "What should we do about the fire engines?" And he said, "They're going too fast." And my father said, let me just understand, you think the fire engines are going too fast? Okay, well, the next time I talk to the fire marshal, I'll speak with him about that. He goes, "Thank you," and he walks away. So I go over to my dad and I said, "Dad, are you crazy? What do you mean the fire engines are going too fast? Somebody's house is burning down. You want the fire engines to go fast." My father said, "Son, you just learned one of the most important lessons in your life. There are certain things that you have to learn to ignore." Just let it roll off. All right? You do it courteously, but if you're trying to do everybody's priorities, then you're never going to get to your own. Right? And now the third. I'm sitting at dinner with my father, and the phone rings. So my father answers the phone. Well, let me give you a little background to it first. Scranton's a very ethnic town. There was actually it wasn't a written law, of course, but there was always an Irish councilman, an Italian councilman, a Welsh councilman, a Jewish councilman, and a WASP councilman. And that was like always, every year it was like that. All right. And so one time the Irish councilman referred to the Italian councilman and talked about the mafia tactics that he was using. So the Italian councilman took great umbrage at this, understandably, and called my father on it. And my father said, "Yes, we have to have an apology. We can't have that in our council." The Irish councilman refused to apologize. So my father said, "Well, the meeting is not in order," and adjourned it, and would not call the council back into session until there was an apology. So the council did not meet for 6 weeks until there was an apology. All right, but that's the end of the story. At the beginning, the day after this happened, and it was a televised event, we're sitting at dinner, and my father gets this phone call. And what I hear my father say on the other end of the phone is, "Oh, yes, nice hearing from you, sir. Yes, what's on your mind?" "Oh, I see. Oh, yes, of course, I agree." Right. "Oh, no, I don't think that would be necessary, but I do appreciate your support, and I promise you I'll stand, and we're going to get this done right." And my father hangs up and then bursts out laughing. So I said, "Dad, what was going on?" And he said, "This is the conversation." The guy on the end goes, "Mr. Walkoff, my name is Luigi Balducci. I'm 85 years old. I come from Italy. I hear this councilman, this Irishman, talk about Italian mafia tactics. Mr. Walkoff, we're good people. We're peaceful people. You give me the word, Mr. Walkoff, I blow up this house." Now, and on the other end, I'm hearing, "Oh, well, no, that won't really be necessary." You got to be able to laugh. You got to be able to laugh. Enjoy it. Thank you.
I feel that way. Do I get a gift?
Yeah, you do.
So I just have to say to everybody out there, Allison and I are very blessed to be co-presidents of a congregation of Jews without complainers in it. So just wanted to say that to everyone there. So Brad, we thought long and hard about what to get you, and we thought about how all of us wanted you to win, even those of us who don't live in East Brunswick. And I know that it was a lot of time and energy that you and Penny had to spend in getting you elected, and now and keeping you elected. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to really recognize who you are as a person. We thought, we can't. Who wants another plaque or a bowl or something? And so we came up with the idea of putting a leaf on our tree of life. And I will tell you what it said. It's been ordered, and I promise it'll be up before your second term. So, and it says, honoring Brad Cohen, Mayor of East Brunswick. A gifted leader is one who is capable of touching your heart. And it's got the date 15 Shabbat 5777. And one of the reasons I really liked that quote for you is, as you know, I'm one of your many, many Facebook friends. And I watch what you and read what you write, and I read it and I think, oh my God, he has such eloquence about him. And he touches my heart when he talks about things that I could never be so eloquent and word it that way. And I love reading what you write on there, and so I thought that it was really wonderful to put something in here about how you touch people's hearts, and I know you touch mine. So this is what it will look like this.
Thank you.
And it's been ordered, and it will be up soon and on our Tree of Life in the lobby. So Mazel Tov to you.
Thank
We're
you.
so glad that we could honor you. You gonna say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Who is a mayor that doesn't want to speak?
That's a politician that doesn't talk. Does that exist? First of all, I want to thank the rabbi and the cantor and the entire congregation for giving me this honor. It's very humbling. And it doesn't go unnoticed that it occurs on Tu B'Shvat. And for those of you who know much about the holiday, and I did have to Google it and look it up, so I admit that I'm not a Hebrew scholar, it takes me back to my days of botany, because I really don't remember a whole lot from those days, but you start to think we're in the middle of the winter, and why are we doing a holiday that celebrates trees when the trees look so barren? But if you know about the seasons and how that works, there's a nectar, so to speak, at the bottom of the tree, which is why the tree is actually so meaningful to me today, and it should be to all of us. And between the water from the rains and the snow and the mixture of the leaves and the twigs from the year before, it forms a nectar that actually starts the entire process of formation of sap, which goes against gravity and starts a journey that's very difficult because of that. And at the end of that journey, you get what we hope is going to be some beautiful fruit. And that's part of why we actually celebrate today by holding up that fruit, because it serves as a beacon to where you're headed. It's a vision and a direction and the end point. And it allows you a goal to guide you in a path that sometimes varies, which is a lesson in life. Which also reminds me of, does anybody know what this little part of your mouth is in pen and bill? Philtrum. And there's a belief in Judaism that while a baby is growing in utero, that the angels give each human the lessons and the morals of the Torah. And that at the time of delivery, he hits this almost as like a delete button, and you lose all of that memory, but the paths lessons are imprinted in your brain. And we study the Torah our entire life. We hold it up as a beacon in that journey so that we always have guidance. We know where we're going. And while the journey may vary a little bit for each one of us, that should always be the end point, and the ideal is to learn all the lessons that there are in that Torah. And whether you take that lesson and journey and do it yourself or do it through leadership, what I've always found was that leadership isn't always something that you can learn in a book. I went to business school and we learned about leadership. There's leaders who are born and it's innate to them. There's leaders who have a little bit of those skills and you could probably teach them ways to be better. There's some that are horrible at it and you could teach them skills to be decent. But the best lessons that I've ever learned in life are the ones that are actually in real life, and they don't come out of a book. And so I'm going to end this with a story. It's a real story. My father-in-law, who's here today, God willing, will turn 92 this year. He's a Holocaust survivor. And about 10, 12 years ago now, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, you know, Mickey, this stage of disease, all we're going to have to do is cut it out, and you don't need to do any chemo, no radiation. At your age, you'll die from that first. So I think you should just do the surgery. And he did it. And went through the recovery. 6 months later, it came back. And so we went back to the doctor. We're all finished. But he's not. He goes to the doctor. You told me it wouldn't come back again. Explain to me how that happened. And the doctor, I don't know. Like the stage of disease, the lymph nodes were negative. It shouldn't have come back. But this time we're going to have to take a wider section out. We're going to have to do the chemo and the radiation that I told you weren't going to do. This time you're going to have to do it. And he did all that. Hated every minute of it, but he did it. A year later, the tumor came back again. So this time, we're all totally distraught. Not Mickey. He finds through his circle of network of Holocaust survivor friends somebody whose son is a doctor at NYU, finds a different doctor at NYU because he figured he gave the other guy 2 shots. That's it. Gives it to somebody else. And the other doctor sat down with him, and Penny and her sister went there because you know what happens when you send 2 old people to listen to what the doctor says about afterwards. They could sit there an hour. What'd they say? Nothing. So he comes back, and the 2 girls went with him, and the doctor was very young and very nice and went through a very long explanation with his graphs and his pictures and his diagrams. And at the end of the discussion, he looks at Mickey and he says, do you have any questions? And he looks at him and he said, I didn't understand a goddamn thing you just said. But let me tell you something. I should have been dead 60 years ago. And I'll die when I'm good and ready, and it ain't going to be from this cancer. So you cut that thing out of me and make sure that that cancer doesn't come back. Well, he'll be 92, God willing, this July. And so the greatest lessons in life are often the things that you learn along the way. They don't come out of a book. So while we're all on this journey, while I'm starting mine, while I have my vision of where I want the town to go, that's a journey. We're all on a journey. And my wish for you this Shabbat, for Kol HaChavarim Sheli Nishbachim, a Shabbat that you, at the end of the journey that each of us take, that the fruit that you get if you learn along the way should yield the sweetest fruit. And so my blessing for this Shabbat Shira is that you all follow this journey together and end up at the same point with the sweetest fruit. And let us all Shabbat Shalom.
Semen tov, mazel tov, semen tov, mazel tov, semen tov, mazel tov, semen tov. Yehei lanu, yehei lanu, yehei lanu.